Hello, everyone. Something I have suspected for some time now is that brilliance does not go hand in hand with madness. I have noticed in movies and a general sort of programming that the last thing you want to do is become an artist, or you will go crazy. Or that brilliance always leads to a rabbit hole of madness. So, this is usually in works of media. Now, it's not to say that these things may occur, and there has been sort of a correlation with such things. But what I'm hoping to do is reveal to you that there is a programming of ostracization causing people to avoid the arts because of this. And brilliance, when it's perceived by people who are not brilliant, they might have their own particular motivations for stopping people from being heard. So, elite people who have lots of money and a lot of social status, my goal is not to villainize them, but some of them, or even maybe a huge amount of them, they're going to want to protect their power, stature, and status, and maybe might even want to keep it from other people. It's not hard to imagine that. George Carlin mentions that the simple notion of powerful people talking together and wanting to keep their power, all of a sudden you might be considered a conspiracy theorist, when that's kind of a logical thing why someone might want to do that. So, in media about artists, you've got the movie about The Doors by Oliver Stone, which a lot of the band The Doors said was a horrible depiction of Jim Morrison. He was sort of a drunken, chaotic machine in that movie. When I looked at Ray Charles, the movie about that, they emphasized him being on drugs and being really screwed up, didn't really pay attention to his brilliance as much as that. There's a simple notion of brilliance leading to madness when this doesn't actually make sense. Brilliance is supposed to be an advantage. Now, it's understandable that the nature of brilliance is to see things from a different perspective, which often may challenge the systems and the conventions of the society, and this can lead to a person kind of having a weird outlook at life where they are kind of unbalanced in other ways in their life. But this is not abnormal for most people. If you have a lot of strengths in one way, you also have other weaknesses because you focus so hard in certain strengths and neglected other things. Not neglected, but there's only so much a person can do with their life in a certain amount of time. Also, what was it? Walk the Line also depicted Johnny Cash as a really messed up person. My simple little slide in here might be that maybe these brilliant people, are revolutionists, and a system that doesn't want them to overthrow government, religion, or the current structures, they would like to depict these people as crazy so that you don't listen to them, and that you don't become them, and that you don't love creating like they do. So, the goal isn't necessarily revolution, right? But I find that art is a revolution of one's soul. Their consciousness can thrive and influence other people. People who utilize control systems or hierarchy kind of want to control that so that it stays in their advantage. Now, there's all kinds of weird stuff in the 60s about FBI informants or even CIA operatives being linked to their parents. The Grateful Dead was, I think it was an FBI informant. and a lot of the 60s musicians, that was a thing. Drugs was actually, I'm suspicious that drugs was actively intertwined and pushed on people to kind of shut down any revolution from happening. You can see that sort of anytime someone signs with a major label in times past, there's not really a whole lot of major labels today. There's a lot of independents now. But they would try to, they would offer them drugs or limousine or whatever, and when it came for them to pay the artists their due shares, they would say, well, you already spent all that with all the things we offered you, and barely pay them, kind of making them dependent on the label and the structure around them. Thom Yorke has also, from Radiohead, has mentioned this, that they do try to get you to do this, to be dependent on them, so that you owe them and they can leech off of you more. So the depression and sadness and maybe madness is probably, and in my own personal experience as an artist, is a person who is trying to open up people's perceptions and a system that is trying to keep them from doing that. Or it may not be the system, it could be just general programming, ignorance, and it's difficult for them to exist in a society where a lot of the arts have been ostracized. Although it is getting better ever since 2020's lockdown, a lot of people have become more independent and have been creating their own jobs and doing their own thing artistically. So what do we glean from all this? Like there was something else I wanted to mention. I've mentioned Sir Ken Robinson's TED Talk before, Do Schools Kill Creativity, but it is definitely relevant here because he mentions how the arts and dance and theater are the first things that got kicked out of schools. Now, this was some years ago, so he did a lot of work to reform education and to kind of form education around the individual rather than trying to force the same four main subjects the entire world did into the same people, into many different kinds of people. And in it, he talks about how a lot of jobs the education system has failed a lot of people where they don't give them a handoff to the jobs that they're looking for after all their hard work and grades and piece of paper. I always thought that was really strange. Why isn't there a direct correlation between graduating college and then here are some possible jobs that you may want? Many people, they get their piece of paper and then it amounts to nothing because there isn't that bridge. And yeah, there is going to be a lot of pain and toil and torment whenever you're trying to break conventions or break things that are kind of trying to invade you, telling you how you should be, such as the academic supremacy ladder climbing, them telling you how to develop yourself rather than asking you how it can grow your special capabilities. But we've improved a lot since the TED Talk, Do Schools Kill Creativity, in a lot of ways. But yeah, this programming definitely, I've noticed it in other things, like in forms of psychology. Some friends of mine were talking about autism the other day, and I just see it kind of following very similar suit in that a person who can deep dive into things, this is part of a syndrome? No, that's an advantage. A person who feels socially awkward around other people, yeah, they would probably do that if they're trying to break conventions of a society that kind of doesn't understand them and is kind of used to not understanding each other and just calling people crazy or something wrong with them when they are simply deliberately trying to be different, and it speaks to their soul. Autism isn't the only example. There's a psychologist known as Daniel Mackler. He tells you how strange it is that they are prescribing medications to people, and there's no way. When you ask other therapists, when do they detox from the medications, they say, oh, never do that. Rather than it being sort of a temporary bridge to a person of having emotional healing. He no longer believes in the field of psychology because there's all kinds of academic supremacy intertwined with that. And that once you don't fit into the boxes of what psychology says, and there's something wrong with you. He explains how some psychologists are probably very gifted, and then they try to create a school teaching people who are less gifted that they can somehow be the same way, and it creates them, these psychologists, who tend to stick towards categories and ostracize anyone who doesn't fit into these categories, rather than being flexible about their perceptions. There is a YouTuber known as Marina Karlova who mentions the simple distinction. If depression is supposed to be a chemical imbalance, they don't actually use any scientific methods to... my cat's hitting the door right now, I gotta finish this up. They don't use any scientific methods to determine that you're depressed if you have a chemical imbalance. They basically prescribe things to you based on things that they're hearing and behaviors and whatnot. Well, anyway, my cat's trying to get inside. Let me know what you think about this. I have a lot more to say about this subject, but there's a good start. Have a lovely day.